Before I introduce you to my next guest today, I want to make sure that you're aware of two new resources to help you to increase your productivity, clarify your purpose, and improve your communication skills. The first one is our Facebook community called Leadership with Purpose. So it's a private community. So go to Facebook groups, search for Leadership with Purpose, and send a request to be invited into the group. There's a few questions for you to answer, and then live to have you a part of that community of other like-minded leaders. Our team is really excited about launching the next level coaching roadmap. It's a group coaching format. So highly recommend that you check that out and to get your questions answered. If you're a leader that's experiencing any of the following, this is definitely a group format that's going to help you break through to your next level within leadership and your career. So if you have any fear about moving to the next level in your leadership career, this is a group that you'll want to connect with. If you have loss of confidence, if you're kind of confused, like not knowing really how to tap into the hidden job market, if you have a desire to really to grow to the next level, this is definitely a group that you'll want to be able to connect with. If you want to know how to stay calm in a high stress environment, there's going to be strategies, tips, and resources, conversations all around how to develop skills to do just that. So if you want more information, head over to warrenwandling.com/the next level coaching. And in there on that page, you'll notice more information about the coaching roadmap, but also there's a link for you to schedule a phone call with me so we can help really figure out if this is the right fit to helping you take your career to the next level. Okay, again, that's warrenwandling.com/the next level coaching. Welcome back to another episode of How to Become an Obstacle Buster. I'm your host, Warren Wandling, the show that's dedicated helping leaders and entrepreneurs to overcome their obstacles, build resilience, and achieve success. And I have an interesting guest with me today to help us do just that, Mark Basa. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you so much, Warren. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. As a director of Hawk Finance, managing director of Web3 division of X Webcan, a global PR communication agency, an early crypto evangelist, and decades of your experience and expertise has really established you as a thought leader in creating and building crypto brands. Can you tell our listeners a little more about your business?
Absolutely. I joined XWeekend, the global PR and comms agency, to basically build out the Web3 division. And so people are listening, what's Web3? It's basically consider blockchain and crypto companies, all those things you hear about Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's businesses that build, you could say, companies on blockchain technology. At Hawk Finance, I'm the director there. I led the project and to a new transformation to build it into what it was previously, a community token, and to build that into a decentralized finance ecosystem where you could basically, take your tokens and you could bridge them across blockchains. And yeah, so in those two roles, I predominantly work purely in crypto these days, and I help companies who want to transition into crypto technology and build their brands. If they want to raise money, or if they want to launch something, I help them do that, or I help native crypto companies basically go out there and try and find their edge and unique position in the market.
Wow, that's fascinating. Obviously, it's been around for several, almost over decades, hasn't it, within crypto? But now it's really starting to make strong headways into the finance area.
Yeah. So Bitcoin is, the you can say Bitcoin is the original uh, coin where everything starts on blockchain technology. This is where the whole market is found around this, and that's well over a decade. And then after that came, others like Ethereum, and so many that have come and gone. Exchanges, everything. What the I guess the cusp of the industry now is that it's, even though it's more than a decade old, it's still very early. Not even 1% of the world's transactions are done on blockchain, but there's a lot of hype around it because what we're looking at now is, any kind of retail investor can buy a token and it can absolutely explode, sort of like if you had special access to Silicon Valley tech companies back in the day, or the dot com boom. That's what we're experiencing now.
Oh, wow, fascinating. So, what is the greatest obstacle your clients encounter?
So I would say, so leading X Weekend, I guess I'm trying to show clients about what they should be doing and leading their customers or their investors or developers. And I think the big obstacle here is what I'm trying to get them to overcome is you think you know something about the market and how people act and behave, and you think that with all the money or expertise you have that you're going to win, and most of them lose. They, blockchain companies have the same failures and I would say success rates as any other company, but they think that they're a first mover and that a good product will set them apart from everybody else. It's not like that. It's actually the brand most people buy into, especially retail investors buy into brand and the brand power and the association. So I see companies that have raised, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they fail to get traction. And the excuse me, the obstacle for them is that, well, if they don't solidify their vision, their ideas to the community, to investors, no one's going to buy into anything. And they really struggle with making something very complex, very, very simple. So I'm there to basically say, okay, these are your obstacles ahead of you. Here's how to make it much easier for you to launch in the market by focusing on one thing, which is what I call the Bitcoin principle or the Bitcoin idea, which is don't sell Bitcoin as a complex peer to peer money exchange network. Sell it as decentralized money. Sell it as something very simple.
Oh, interesting. So, within the clients that you work with, then, Mark, are there strategies to really help them to break through that obstacle, as for them to be able to capture that idea of making something simple?
Yeah, starting off with why they started, first of all. Many of them start with doing something out of passion. They leave their jobs or they, come up with this algorithm or do something. And then as they're developing, they kind of go after the low hanging fruits. Oh, we should add this feature and we should do this. And it's like totally so far from their core product and the problem they solve and why they started. And so they get so far from that. By the time they end up with me, I'm like, well, the first question I ask them is always like, why did you start this thing? What drove your feelings and your emotions behind launching this, or wanting to launch this product? Let's say if they've never, been in this industry before, I want to hear about the stories of you coming up with this idea, because that's what we have to sell. We have to sell you as a leader. So, X Weekend doing global PR and comms, we do PR really, really well. We rank among some of the best in the world with landing top tier press. Crypto companies really struggle with getting top tier press because most of the industry, most of the journalists out there don't understand crypto. So I tell these companies, like, if you want to land top tier press in USA Today or Washington Times or anybody or anything that's credible to give you the brand equity that you need to sell to investors or consumers or whatever, then you really, really have to break things down very simply and sell the vision and the idea that you are actually a first mover and you're a leader and you're here to steer, readers reading the papers, for example, through the bear market when times are tough and through the bull market when the good times roll.
That's really interesting that you mentioned the why. Just like any other business or leader that I've worked with in the past, that if we have to be able to establish the strong why, because that's what people are really. It's what drives those leaders to be able to be resilient as they build their business, but also making sure that that's what people buy is the emotion, not the technology. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Absolutely. The big thing like there's an elephant in the room with every crypto company, and most of them aren't securities, but they are marketed in a way that they sell a token, which gives you access to their software, for example, or their protocol. And the earliest evangelists are the ones that buy that token, which fuel the foundation, you can say, which provide money and capital for them to do things. That's how you raise money. And it's these early evangelists that are there for the upside, of course. Like if I get an early, maybe this token does 100x and I can retire. And that should always be addressed. Like address those people and listen to those evangelists. And it's the why these people are driven by. So you stumble across something and you think, you know what, if that company was able to give its technology to Google or Microsoft, this thing could explode. Now, the fundamental problem, though, in that thinking is that many evangelists and many companies, crypto companies, think that they need the validation of a Web 2 company, a traditional company like Microsoft, when they don't. They need the validation of maybe blockchain developers. Maybe they need the validation of the community or smaller businesses. You don't always need the validation of the people you think you need it from. Again, going back to the obstacles, that's an obstacle for them to like change their way of thinking. So I say, screw all that. Go back to why. Why did you start this? What makes you special? And why are you a visionary and a leader? And sell that to people because they'll go, okay, well, I believe in that person. He or she is driven by their heart, and that's what's going to make them win.
Yeah. So true. The thinking, it goes back to your thinking or limiting beliefs that they might have already preconceived ideas or something that they have to change in their thought process that allow them to get unstuck and to go to the next level.
Yep. And you know what? We see this all the time. Think about all the expert financial analysts that all predict, I don't know, stock or bonds or Bitcoin, and almost all of them get it wrong. They get it wrong all the time, and then they delete their tweets on social media and start from scratch. And they're promoting themselves as experts in this field. And I'm like, sorry, you don't know anything about anything. Some of you can get it right. Some of you are lucky. Some of you can get it right. But really, really, many of these so-called influence experts can't. They can't get it right because they cannot predict the markets. Very few people in the world control the financial instruments and the entire global financial market. So unless you're one of those people that feels this sort of economic movement, you're just not going to pick it. So that's the same with these businesses. They often come to us with problems like, okay, we have, we're super brainy, we have PhDs, and we want to get into the market, and we are really happy for you to take over our branding strategy. I love those people because it's like, let us do, let us combine our brains and do the left brain, right brain strategy on what works for either side. But then, I would say in more traditional finance or like maybe in the corporate finance space, that there's a lot of money entering crypto and there's a lot of egos running there. I'm an ex Facebook, I'm an ex Google, I'll tell you what to do, sort of attitudes that you would find maybe on so called thought leadership. And I end up looking at people like this and like, well, why did you hire us for? You've now created your own obstacles because you came to the market telling the market what they should do rather than listening to the market.
So, what was the key strategy that contributed to your success, Mark, building your business?
My own personal brand is an interesting story. I heard about Bitcoin in 2010, and then I'm 23 in 2011 or something like that, I think I was. And then I started my first crypto project, which was odd for the time because there were no crypto projects. There was no industry. There was just Bitcoin floating at $1 or something. And some buddies and I got together and we wanted to build this payment system where you could use Bitcoin and US dollars and loyalty points. We really wanted to disrupt the loyalty point industry, especially airlines. We just really hated the way it was run and we thought it was a scam. We thought we could bring this new decentralized model. I don't even think we used the word decentralized for the thing we were building then, but it really was. And then, it would be years later when I would actually take my crypto career seriously. And then I could start actually building crypto companies and helping people with raises and doing things. So I became, on a personal brand level, really successful by being super early on Bitcoin and Bitcoin, or you could say crypto branding. And then when I came to take over Hawk Finance, we, turned this project, which was nothing, into an ecosystem. We built this an oracle, or otherwise known as like a blockchain bridge, where you could send money across multiple blockchains. And now we've got this great interest on investing in the technology or acquiring the technology and scaling out to the community. But then I could just take these skills I learned to other companies I'd worked for, and it provided really successful because then I kind of created this own brand for myself where I was like one of very few people in the world who had a crypto project at 23 when Bitcoin was worth nothing. And so it made me be a visionary. And I think that was the best part about that, was going to other companies and saying, look, I can help you and guide you through these rough waters and come out at the end successful.
Well, that's fascinating. That sounds like an obstacle story in and of itself, Mark. That's
It
I'd
is,
love to hear sometime.
for sure.
So, what was the? I guess what's the best way to build a crypto company?
I mean, if you're going to start from scratch, the ones that I see that are the most successful are extremely organic in their nature. So we have this one client. It's a young gentleman from Italy who just, he's like a 19-year-old prodigy developer, and he built this thing because he wanted to enable entrepreneurs to be able to sell digital goods online, and they could accept crypto. And I think he's processed like $80 million in payments, and he's not even in the first year of business. So, so, so what I want to say is like, but on the contrary, there are others, and the reason I should point out the others, which are the ones that raise tons of money and screw it up on another level, where they become corporate companies instead of crypto companies. And the nature of crypto is different. You're a bunch of people working remotely, wearing sweatpants and hoodies, and you're coding or you're selling all day, and there's good vibes. It kind of reminds me of maybe Facebook, yeah, as depicted in that movie,
Uh-huh.
Social Network, right? The early days of Zuckerberg, where it's just really chilled and it gets big. And those companies I see succeed the most. The ones that kind of go with their intuition and just they become very successful very fast, and especially when like that they get to raise a lot of money or generate a lot of revenue, and they're early, but they just provide this simple service and don't complicate it, and they really scale at speed, and they listen to the community, and they just build with their heart. It might sound cliche, but building on any other principle, a lot of these drivers will really blind these crypto companies very fast. So again, as I mentioned, traditional finance, corporate finance, money entering crypto, I see a lot of failures there, heaps. They just can't get off the ground. They set up HR departments and then hire people not from crypto, but they've got MBAs and PhDs. I'm not knocking having a degree at all. I'm saying that you need to find pioneers who know how to build, who are typically high risk taking, hungry people at certain stages in their life. So if you go and you try to develop a HR department and find people that are suited to work at Google or Microsoft, maybe they can continue to maintain code, but they're not as innovative. So do the opposite of that. Find the people that are hungry to build.
Yeah, it sounds like if they stay nimble and creative, that's those companies are successful. If they
Yep.
come too processed and corporate, then the process slows down.
It slows down immensely, and I've watched a lot of deals in front of me from companies that I know, deals that should have come to fruition, but because they were so structured in their corporate ways, they didn't, and so they miss out. So
So I'm curious, what does almost everyone get wrong when they're trying to build a crypto company?
I would say everybody gets wrong probably how valuable that thing is that they're doing. Number one, so their perceived value. Maybe they're a little obnoxious, and I don't. It's 50-50. Some are obnoxious in their ways of they really think that they are super special, and the other ones, with a little bit of feedback, will change that and say, "Oh wow, maybe you're right. We need to rethink our strategy." The other thing that I see they get wrong again is their strategy. Strategy is everything, and I see them often get wrong of how they're going to go to market and launch their project, you know, to the public. The validation that they expect from people. So again, I see some super teams with all these big people involved who may be extremely obnoxious, and they believe that because of their experience that the crypto community is going to care. The crypto community doesn't care. It doesn't care if you came from Facebook or if you came from Walmart. It doesn't judge you based on those things. It judges you based on does your product work. There's no there's no corporate culture involved, and that's a really good, I guess, metric or mechanism to judge a company when they just want to build stuff and have a good time. And I see a lot of people get that wrong. They think, well, we are these certain people, we build this certain thing, and then the community doesn't accept them. The crypto community doesn't accept them. Corporate finance doesn't accept them. So I see those two things, really stopping companies from succeeding a lot.
Well, that's really interesting in reference to the dynamic in the culture that's helping to drive a success of a business or their failure.
Yeah, and I mean, there are of course very successful corporate businesses all over the world, and if they change their model, they wouldn't exist. But the times are rapidly changing because of decentralization. The idea that you and me should own our own money, own our data and everything is rapidly changing, which means the culture has to change. So if you've got a big corporate company and you demand everyone to clock in at 8 and check out at 6, and then the competitor is building your product but on the blockchain, you got no chance because that competitor is going to offer them remote work, freedom. Do what you want when you want, just get the job done. And the corporate structure can't keep up with that.
So I understand that you have strongly feel that the future of crypto and like banking in general really can't impact the younger generation. So what is why do you think that is in reference to why the younger people don't really relate to the corporate banks?
So going again by the culture drives advertising, it drives marketing, it drives hiring, it drives everything. So if you're the next generation are growing up with subscription models, freedom, flexibility, if they're going to grow up with that they want things on demand and want to use them, do you really think they're going to wait for a Western Union remittance payment? Are they going to wait for a 3-day bank transfer? I mean, I can send money all over the world now using crypto and it gets there instantly. On my international banks, I can't do that. Like there's a process. So that's going to be a huge driver in the consumer driving these choices. And so then you've got all this, the older generation that's moving out and retiring, and the new ones are coming in with the knowledge of crypto and blockchain. And so they will change those banks. Even the regulators who grow up will have to be exposed to crypto and blockchain. People think it's going to happen within 10 years. To be honest, I don't think it's going to happen that quick. I think it's going to happen maybe in 30 years at a much bigger level because there are so many obstacles that prevent. I would say that the regulators don't want it to happen. The banks don't want it to happen. So when I say banking, I mean like decentralized banking will more take place on the blockchain and amongst peer-to-peer transactions versus JP Morgan and Chase all of a sudden saying, okay, now all we do is crypto. I don't think that's happening for a very long time. They'll speculate, they'll invest, but the way that we send money to each other, I mean, to be honest with you, the technology exists right now where private banks don't have to exist, where your money is yours, but they do.
So you think within just the way that the money's being transferred, that younger generation is more adapt to that flexibility or the ways of being transferred compared to the old model in reference from a banking. And so
Yep.
they're ready to be like the first adopters and move forward with it compared to other
Yep.
generations that are slower.
I can't remember the last time I walked into a bank, and 10 years ago that was different. Now, right? And so what's happening in 10 years later? It's that your money changes too. So even the banks know. I mean, I spoke to one of the biggest car companies in the world some months ago, and their CEO told me that they're going to look towards a model where they're going to sell cars virtually, all online, the whole experience, everything. They want to close up all their you know their retail shops in the next 10 years. So that's why the metaverse and those other trending topics mean something. So of course the banks have to do it, but I think the banks will try to prevent it and hang on to it as long as they can, sort of like Uber moving into cities with taxi companies. It has to be driven by the consumer wanting these things. And if the banks don't offer it, the consumer will go somewhere else. I mean, there are so many companies out there right now, crypto companies, that will pay you in crypto, which you can, of course, cash out to your US dollars. So, the options are there, especially when it's being driven by your employer, right?
Yeah, interesting. So I think leadership is influence, as it's been said. What's one top strategy that you share with your clients that really help grab or develop results?
So going back to that Bitcoin principle is starting on, focusing. So I build up a strategy like this. I normally do these workshops and then we build the brand from that. So we have this Bitcoin principle, Bitcoin idea. Who are you? Why do you do this thing? And the strategy is built off that. So what do you want to be known by in the media, or what do you want the media to, you should say, or journalists to publish about you, is defined by who you are, why you do what you are. So why you do what you do. It all comes down to that. So the strategy, the whole thing that we build, we just signed with this client now, and they've built some incredible technology and backed by, the biggest and the best in crypto and blockchain technology. Like they've really got something special. And we're doing this now, which is starting off with the why. And the whole 12 months we're going to work with them. Everything we do, every time that they're going to speak, get booked on a podcast, every time they're going to post something on social media is defined by the why. And that's the best strategy. So if you're a listener out there and you want to drive sales, or you've got a business, or you want to create something, starting with the why around your entire strategy builds your culture around what you actually do. And you can set those through brand guidelines and who you are, like your hiring policy. If you want to be decentralized and you want to work remote, build your business around that idea, that concept that you've got people working 24/7. That's the best way to start with, why you do what you do. It really changes the perception of who you are. And it's really successful, especially when it comes to PR.
Yeah, I would totally agree, Mark, in reference to helping someone to identify their strong why and then staying with that same message. That's really fascinating in reference to that's the kind of your model of how you lead and direct companies, starting with the why of the importance of being able to grow and develop their company.
So many companies grow so fast and the founders are too distant and the hierarchy becomes too big and they forget that why. So the new people involved, like I was pitching to a business of Richard Branson's, over 10 years ago about this concept I had built for loyalty points and Bitcoin. And the airline at that point said, well, you're 6 months too late. Right? Imagine saying you're 6 months too late when Bitcoin's worth $1. But if Richard Branson was there, right, would he have looked at this young 23-year-old wearing a nice suit with his friends that they think that they can change the world? Maybe he would have taken a chance at us. So it's kind of like that why again can really quickly be dissolved from your company if you're not careful with the right people that you hire and the way that you build your culture. That's all I wanted to mention about that.
So, what authors have influenced you in your business?
Number one, best book of all time is definitely Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
Oh
Um,
wow, that's amazing that you had mentioned that book.
yeah, I'm kind of like in the. I mean, I first read it when I was, oh boy, I must have been 21, 22, because my grandma told me to read it, and my mum, and then I read that, and that changed everything for me in perception, especially in terms of like your desire, your drive to do something. I mean, I've done well, but I'm still very hungry. I work as if I'm, I need to get my next meal. But that's cooler because it's a natural instinct to want to create. But that book really changed everything. And then I read books like, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and all those classics. What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School, all that stuff was just kind of
Oh
like I think
sure.
those 80s classics and 90s classics when those things were getting very popular. Self-help business books, I think they were called.
Right. Yeah, those are some great titles. So definitely, if our listeners have not listened to any of the or listened, I say listened or read because there's some just like as the market's changed, those that don't like to read, but there's Audible and other tools like
Mm.
that they can get the same content in a different format.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the best versions of like Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, are I think the ones that were written in like the translated in the 40s or 50s. I think the earliest ones may be harder to relate because the English language has changed a lot. But the more modern ones, I think, lose their spiritual touch. So try to go for the classics if you can, if you read them, because they can really set you on a good path. Because you know, it's you don't have to be the smartest in the room. I'm not the smartest guy, like that's for sure. I ask my wife. No, don't ask her. But I definitely, I work with some brilliant people, like super super high IQ, and they're incredible people. I'm not on that side of the brain. But I think it's important that you choose your niche and just be good at something. And if you can be first, that's even good. But if you can be better than the competitors, that's what it's really about. And it's also, of course, that thing. It's like what Napoleon Hill teaches you is that drive. If you go out there and you get a degree and you're one of 10,000 marketing managers and you have a degree with other 10,000, well, you're not going to stand out when you go to get a job. You've really got to go as niche as possible with your experience, with what you do, to build that brand value around. So I think that's what Napoleon Hill teaches very well.
So, what does the future hold for you, Mark? And are you working on any special projects?
I'm always working on projects. It's kind of crazy. I've let go of some things that are taking up time. I'm moving back to Australia. I'm After 6 years in Europe, I'm moving back to Australia with my family, and some of the projects I'm working on, I'm rebuilding this old project that we had 10 years ago, the decentralized loyalty point platform. I'm rebuilding this whole thing in a whole new way. I'm building something with like a virtual car configurator where you can basically build your own cars. Again, I'm not an engineer. I just come up with these things, and then I get some very smart teams to build them. And then through X We Can, we are, because my co-founder, sorry, the founder of X We Can, the CEO Greg, he's so well connected and so humble with what he's done. We're looking at films and TV stuff that we're working on together. And then through Hawk Finance, we're building this, we're launching this bridge called Telegraph, and that will come out this year. And yeah, so I'm always building things, but I still get a lot of time. I spend so much time with my family, my wife, and my little boy. So very grateful. But over the next few years, I'm just going to be focused on building things that I am so passionate about and try to focus on them, where I can, develop them to the stage where the smart people can take over.
Yeah, it sounds like some interesting projects that you have on the horizon. So, if our
Absolutely.
listeners wanted to connect, which I know that they probably do, what's the best way for them to be able to reach out and connect?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn, just my name, Mark Basa. I'm on there a lot. I connect and do a lot of networking on LinkedIn. So yeah, you can always reach out, and if you've got any ideas around brand strategy, how to solve your business, if you want to get into crypto, if you want to get into the biggest publications in the world, we can do all that through X We Can. That's for sure.
So, and is there a website that you prefer our listeners to go to be able to connect that way as well?
Yeah, sure. So you can just go to so WECAN.com. And I mean, you can find our contact page there and reach out and ask for Mark.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure both of those your links are in the show notes.
Awesome. That'd be fantastic.
Well, thank you again, Mark, for sharing your strategies, tips, and resources, helping our listeners to overcome their obstacles and build success within their careers.
Thank you so much, Warren. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, you bet. Well, this is Warren Wandling, the host of How to Become an Obstacle Buster. Until next time, be an obstacle buster.